It kicked off with a sealed bundle of letters and a sudden quiet movement. Inside Windsor Castle, staff thought it was just a normal file transfer until Princess Anne showed up herself. Within hours, the corridors were buzzing that something massive had been snatched from the Winter Vault. What looked like simple admin work was actually the spark for a massive internal royal showdown. Stick with me, we are about to dive into what this means for the monarchy, so hit subscribe now. At first, nobody really cared. Windsor is basically built on papers moving between offices and secure vaults. Files get checked, history gets filed away, just another boring day behind those palace walls. But, according to palace insiders, this particular morning felt off from the very second it started. Staff noticed way too much activity in areas that usually never see a single soul. Security was locked down tight, and those access logs were being combed through over and over. Even the veterans who had been there for decades started whispering to each other, feeling uneasy. Things got weird when the top royal archivists were suddenly hauled in with almost zero notice. Let me tell you, these experts don't just show up for some basic everyday paperwork. They handle the monarchy's most sensitive secret documents tied to the very legacy of the crown. Their sudden arrival proved that something way bigger than a routine move was going down. Then came the moment that turned simple curiosity into a full-blown palace panic. Princess Anne just showed up completely unannounced, with no warning to the public, in a place that runs entirely on strict protocols and set schedules that is huge. Anne is seen as the monarchy's toughest guardian, someone who keeps the system running smooth. She is the last person to stir up unnecessary drama, preferring action over any kind of spotlight. So when word got out that she was personally handling this, everyone started sweating. You have to wonder what kind of mess would actually require her direct personal attention. Now, here is where it gets crazy. Pay attention to this part. The truth might just be hidden inside private letters belonging to the late Queen Elizabeth II. Word is that a few sealed letters had become the absolute center of this internal storm. Even without any official word on what they actually said, the rumors were flying fast. People were saying these papers held massive historical weight and were deeply personal. Honestly, their importance was off the charts, way beyond what anyone expected. Just the fact that they were linked to the late Queen changed the whole game. It moved this issue from a simple filing job into a major high-stakes royal crisis. I know what you are thinking. This sounds like something straight out of a thriller. And yeah, it gets even more intense because of what was happening in the shadows. Rumors claim that advisors close to Queen Camilla were also trying to grab these files. They were allegedly rushing to set up their own private review of the archives. Whether that was standard procedure or a move to intercept the letters, we don't know yet. Stick with me because this celebrity scandal remains the center of intense wild speculation. Palace insiders are describing an atmosphere of absolute quiet urgency behind the scenes. It is as if various competing interests have suddenly converged, all eyeing the same. Highly sensitive, legendary treasure. And as questions multiply, one reality is impossible to ignore. Whatever was snatched from the Windsor Vault matters way more than anyone first believed. These were no ordinary letters, and their contents are tied to a royal legacy spanning decades. Long before the current generation of royals took the stage, Queen Elizabeth II had quietly built a system for keeping private papers she knew future generations would need. Few knew where these documents were locked away, and even fewer understood their true impact. Now pay attention to understand why this removal caused such panic behind palace walls. We have to look back to a time when the Queen was quietly building a legacy that went far beyond public ceremonies, state visits, or her basic constitutional duties. Throughout her long reign, she was famous for her patience, discipline, and attention to detail. While headlines focused on historic events, reports suggest the late Queen had a private habit. She carefully preserved correspondence linked to the most pivotal moments in royal history, believing that written records often revealed truths that official public statements simply missed. Experts on royal traditions suggest that private letters held a very unique place in the monarchy. Governments changed, prime ministers came and went, and family relationships evolved through epic crises. Yet that written correspondence remained frozen in time, capturing raw emotions, urgent concerns, and life changing decisions exactly as they existed in that very specific heated moment. Queen Elizabeth reportedly understood this dynamic better than anyone else in the entire world. Rather than viewing these as simple keepsakes, she treated them like pieces of a massive, historical puzzle that future heirs might one day need to solve. A vast collection quietly grew. Some letters were deeply personal, while others touched upon explosive constitutional matters. They covered family disputes, succession drama, and periods of uncertainty that shaped the monarchy. While details rarely reached the public palace, staff whispered about hidden private archives containing decades of carefully preserved material connected to the most significant royal chapters. The existence of these collections was never a total secret. What remained entirely mysterious was the sheer extent of their contents and the extreme protections surrounding them. At the heart of those security measures stood the legendary and formidable Windsor Vault. For generations, the vault held a near mythical reputation among those working in royal circles. It was viewed not just as storage but as a trusted repository shielded from all scrutiny. Access was incredibly limited and procedures were strict. Only a select few individuals were entrusted with safeguarding these materials and the institution's ongoing continuity. But following the passing of Queen Elizabeth, the significance of these archives shifted because the monarch who personally oversaw their preservation was no longer there to explain them. Suddenly, documents that were once just historical records became potential guides to her final views, priorities, and deepest concerns. Every sealed envelope seemed to carry significantly more weight. Every preserved letter appeared to hold shocking new importance. As years passed, the speculation grew. What exactly had the Queen chosen to save? Which events did she consider worthy of documentation? You and I both know how this goes. Turbulent rumors and wild theories started circulating. Most are impossible to verify. Yet, the mystery itself only deepened the public's fascination. Because the more people learned about the existence of these protected secret archives, the more one single question refused to disappear. If these letters were truly important enough to be preserved for all those decades, what explosive truths are still waiting to be discovered? Stick with me because this discovery turned a routine audit into a full blown royal scandal. According to those palace leaks, Anne's team stumbled onto secrets that changed everything. Suddenly, time was of the essence, and waiting was absolutely no longer an option. What followed turned a quiet archival check into something far more explosive. Before this, those letters were just history protected, sure, but mostly just records. But that view shifted fast when Anne's team found references attached to sealed documents. These files were practically demanding to be opened and examined much closer. Now pay attention because the details are being kept under absolute lock and key. No official word has come out yet. The rumors are flying everywhere. Palace whispers claim the entire value of this collection changed overnight. Reports suggest these materials held special high level security classifications. These were letters kept sealed for years, hidden away from the normal archives. Honestly, keeping things under wraps isn't exactly rare in royal circles. History shows plenty of messages were protected with strict instructions on their handling. What had people panicking wasn't just the security, it was the actual content. The fear was that these letters held guidance on the institution's future stewardship. We are talking about the very core of royal power and its future direction. As the news leaked, speculation among the staff went through the roof. Insiders claimed the notes, tied directly to royal responsibility and long term guardianship. Others think the files held observations about critical moments from the late Queen's reign. Publicly, everyone is staying silent, but behind closed doors, it is a different story. You and I both know the atmosphere behind those walls has become incredibly tense. The problem isn't just the text anymore, it is about who holds the power to interpret it. That distinction is everything in royal administration, and the stakes are massive. Think about it, context is often just as important as the content itself. A document looks totally different depending on the lens you use to view it. Sources say internal panic started mounting over who would have final access. The possibility of biased interpretations was keeping everyone up at night. If these letters touch on sensitive family dynamics, who controls the review matters. Suddenly, that question of oversight carried enough weight to shift the balance of power. Senior advisors were pulled into constant, highly private emergency meetings. Experts in law history and royal policy were suddenly all getting involved. Discussions spiraled, and the scope of this project grew exponentially larger. What started as a simple inventory became a massive test of authority. Observers described a state of cautious urgency where every move had huge implications. The further Anne's team dug into that inventory, the more the pressure mounted. Every single document they unearthed seemed to raise a dozen new red flags. Why were these specific letters protected with such extreme care and secrecy? Why did those restrictions stay in place for all those decades? And why were certain people suddenly desperate to see them before the audit ended? These questions hung over everyone, creating a feeling that a storm was brewing. Behind the scenes, the internal power struggle reached a boiling point. Arguments erupted over exactly who should be in charge of this examination. Some said standard channels should handle it, but that wasn't enough for others. They argued the sensitive nature required a much higher level of supervision. All right, stick with me. We are diving into a high stakes royal scandal that you are not going to believe. What began as a simple procedure disagreement exploded into a vicious tug of war over power, trust, and influence. As the battle lines hardened, it became obvious this race wasn't about saving history anymore. It was about who gets to write the narrative. Anne moved fast, but she wasn't alone in this. Rumors began tearing through Windsor like wildfire. Word was out. Queen Camilla's inner circle was secretly gunning for the same archive. This wasn't a shouting match in the streets. It was a silent, lethal race behind palace walls. At first, it sounded like nothing more than baseless gossip moving through the halls. But these whispers, they wouldn't go away. They just kept getting louder. Palace insiders confirmed the inner circle handling the letters was suddenly expanding way too fast. Those dusty, forgotten letters in storage were suddenly the most dangerous items in the kingdom. Everyone wanted a piece of the truth, and the tension inside the palace was becoming absolutely explosive. The atmosphere grew thick with suspicion, making every single move feel dangerous and totally unpredictable. Sources close to the situation say Camilla's advisors were hunting for ways to secure their own access. Was it just boring office bureaucracy? Or were they digging for something much deeper? People are talking, and the speculation is reaching a total fever pitch. Now, pay attention here because in this world, perception is just as deadly as reality. The mere hint that a rival faction wanted in on the review sent anxiety levels through the roof. That fear was stoked by a massive looming concern among the senior staff. If those letters held Queen Elizabeth's raw, unfiltered thoughts, then the stakes had just changed. It wasn't about saving the paper anymore. It was about how someone might twist those words later. Two different people could look at the exact same sentence and see two totally different meanings. A simple piece of advice could easily be painted as a direct command from the grave. A private stray reflection might be weaponized as a permanent statement of principle. One side saw historical context, but the other saw a blueprint for the future. You and I both know how this ends once factions form, the paranoia sets in. Long-time allies who had worked together for years were suddenly finding themselves on opposite sides of the fence. Some argued for total transparency to keep things clean and prevent any nasty misunderstandings. Others were desperate to lock it down, claiming they had to protect the integrity of the intent. What started as a boring meeting about files had mutated into a full-blown political nightmare. The tension was suffocating. You could practically feel the air changing in the palace. Even the lower-level staff, who usually stay far away from the drama, could feel the walls closing in. Every casual conversation became guarded. Everything felt linked to the bigger, darker game being played. According to those on the inside, even the employees were being watched like hawks. It wasn't just the documents anymore. Everyone's motives were suddenly being questioned under a microscope. Eventually, the inevitable happened, and King Charles was pulled into the chaos. At this point, pretending this was just an archival review was impossible. Everyone wanted control, and the significance of those letters just kept ballooning with every passing hour. People familiar with the palace hierarchy say Charles was stuck in a massive, delicate trap. Let's pause for a second. This moment hits different when you realize his dilemma. Favor one side and he alienates the other. Take a side and he risks a civil war. But doing nothing, that just let the uncertainty tear the royal circle apart from the inside. As the final deadline for access approached, the pressure became absolutely unbearable. Every single minute of silence just fueled more wild rumors, spreading through the corridors. They tried to keep it quiet, but every secret attempt at discretion only made the world hungrier for the truth. Stick with me, because you and I are about to dive into a massive royal scandal where time was running out. Some people wanted to drag this out, while others demanded immediate answers right away. Caught between these two sides, the fight over these private letters hit a breaking point. Most folks thought this standoff would last for weeks, but they were dead wrong. Just when the confusion felt like it might swallow the whole process, everything shifted. One person realized that waiting around was no longer an option for the monarchy. Princess Anne made a power move that absolutely shocked everyone watching the palace. No speeches, no drama, just a silent strike that changed everything behind the scenes. Think of this as a masterclass in royal authority, because the tension was reaching a boiling point. For days, that uncertainty hung over the palace like a storm ready to break. Questions were popping up faster than anyone could ever hope to answer them. While everyone else was busy debating reports, say Princess Anne made a bold call. Palace rumors suggest she saw the growing confusion as a dangerous ticking time bomb. Delaying the decision only created more room for rumors, arguments, and total chaos. If she wanted to keep the collection safe, she knew decisive action had to come first. What happened next reportedly unfolded with truly incredible lightning-fast speed. Insiders claim she authorized the immediate transfer of the most sensitive correspondence. She moved them out of their old spot and into a much tighter security zone. There were no big announcements, no public explanations, and absolutely no attention-seeking moves. Instead, the operation moved through secret channels with a level of discipline that was insane. Even the most experienced palace observers were caught off guard by the sheer efficiency. The precision of this operation is exactly why it grabbed so much attention later on. Everyone involved described a focused atmosphere where every single step was pre-planned. They locked down access permissions, clarified oversight, and set new ground rules. They reviewed all the existing documentation and updated everything that needed fixing. By the time the public realized what was happening, the crucial stages were done. And here is where it gets interesting. Pay close attention to this part. The real issue wasn't the letters themselves, but who actually held the power over them. According to reports, Anne went straight for the root of the problem: total clarity. The collection would be safe, the rules would be clear, and everyone would be accountable. In a world full of wild speculation, her goal was to restore order immediately. Security protocols weren't just updated, they were practically overhauled on the spot. Word is that access became super restrictive, shutting out anyone without proper clearance. They went over every record connected to these letters with a fine tooth comb. These might have looked like routine updates, but they signaled a massive shift. This wasn't just some boring archival issue anymore, it was high level crisis management. Perhaps most important was the effort to lock down the entire chain of custody. Policy insiders claim they took extreme care to track every single movement and transfer. They ensured every review and change was documented, leaving no room for error. These measures were meant to kill any ambiguity and keep the historical records untainted. Even tiny gaps can cause huge controversies, and Anne was clearly done with games. She trusted only the best archivists with this massive expanded oversight role. These professionals were handpicked for their deep knowledge and steady hands. They had years of experience handling royal records and keeping the deepest secrets. You and I can see why their involvement finally brought some calm to the storm. Stick with me because you and I are about to unravel a royal scandal that's shaking the palace to its core. The move left everyone stunned, but for those in charge, stability was the only goal, not winning a popularity contest. As word of this quiet transfer spread, you could practically feel the tension rippling through the royal circles. Some insiders praised the bold move as swift and disciplined, exactly what the monarchy needed right now. Others saw it as a calculated power play, a way to assert dominance, just as rivals were starting to show their teeth. Meanwhile, rumors swirl that advisors close to Camilla are feeling sidelined, their influence shrinking by the day. The palace power struggle just hit a breaking point, and the game board has completely changed overnight. Now pay close attention. This is where the tension really begins to ramp up for us. While one side was still reeling, the real story had only just begun at the feet of King Charles III. He's trapped caught between royal family loyalty and the crushing weight of the legacy he inherited. The stakes are incredibly high, as decades of alliances are being tested by this single controversial intervention. Anne's bold move turned what was once simple archival work into a massive institution wide headache. We are talking about documents that reach into the very deepest, most sensitive secrets of the monarchy. At the center of this hurricane stands King Charles, facing a nightmare he clearly hoped to avoid. Word is, he was briefed on the transfer almost immediately, forcing him into a corner he can't escape. You and I both know that trying to contain a fire like this is nearly impossible once it starts spreading. For Charles, this isn't just about following rules or procedure, it's deeply painfully personal. On one side, his own sister Anne, long seen as the most reliable guardian of the crown. Her commitment to duty has never been questioned, making her involvement here even more shocking to everyone. On the other side, those feeling pushed out, demanding a seat at the table as things get serious. Balancing these two opposing forces is going to take a level of skill he might not even possess. But whispers in the halls suggest he knows exactly what this means for his reputation as a leader. Every decision he makes from this point on will define how the world views his authority as king. Private meetings started almost instantly as the gravity of the situation finally began to sink in. Insiders claim he's been locked in intense discussions with his top legal experts and lead advisors. They are poring over every single detail of the correspondence and the legal steps taken to secure them. These aren't just casual chats, but careful, high stakes sessions meant to prevent an absolute disaster. Nobody wants to pour gasoline on this fire, so they are keeping the language extremely formal and measured. Yet, behind those closed doors, they know the game has changed, and they can't ignore the truth. These letters are no longer just old historical artifacts, they are potentially explosive secrets waiting to break. They could hold the key to Queen Elizabeth's final thoughts on issues that still threaten the crown today. As the circle of advisors widens, the pushback from senior royals is becoming louder and more frantic. Some are begging for total silence, arguing that discretion is the only way to save the family name. Others are demanding complete transparency, insisting that any review must be beyond reproach and totally credible. What everyone finally agrees on is that this situation is far more dangerous than they first imagined. These papers exist in a volatile space where family history and the future of the monarchy collide. Mishandling this material could bring the whole house of cards crashing down, and they all know it. For Charles, the emotional burden is clearly starting to take a toll on him behind the scenes. He spent his whole life under the Queen's shadow, and now he has to judge her private legacy. He is carrying the crushing weight of protecting the crown while confronting the past she left behind. Insiders say he is constantly struggling to balance these conflicting duties that simply do not align. Loyalty to his own blood versus his responsibility to the institution, it is an impossible choice. He is being pulled in every direction at once, and the pressure is mounting with every passing hour. One thing is clear: whatever is inside those letters is so significant it threatens the status quo. So, what do you and I take from this? When the past is this explosive, the truth never stays buried. Stick with me because this scandal surrounding the palace letters is getting wild. The absolute urgency and the heated closed door arguments say it all. These documents matter not just for gossip, but because the Queen herself handpicked them to be preserved forever. This sudden realization flipped the script on the entire debate. Procedural drama faded away, replaced by a much bigger, deeper question. If these papers truly hold weight, unlocking their secrets might be the only way to save her actual legacy. As the rumors spread, you and I need to focus on the mystery fueling this fire. People are obsessed with what these hidden letters might actually say. Official silence is total, but whispers are leaking out from palace insiders. They suggest these letters hold guidance and warnings beyond mere family talk. That simple possibility is turning private curiosity into a global obsession. For weeks, speculation has been swirling around the existence of these files. But now the real question is even more intense. What did Queen Elizabeth find important enough to lock away under such top secret conditions? No verified facts exist. No excerpts have leaked. Yet, palace sources say that anyone who has actually seen the correspondence views it differently. It is not an archive, it is a window into the mind of a historic monarch. Reports suggest the heated discussions about this collection keep circling back to one central idea: intention. Why these specific papers? Those who know royal life know the Queen approached her duty with unmatched consistency. Through every crisis, she stayed focused on continuity, absolute responsibility, and service to the institution itself. Because of that, many are wondering if the letters contain her final thoughts on those very same principles. The gossip is hitting a fever pitch among insiders. Some believe the pages include observations from decades at the center stage. Others think they tackle the delicate balance between personal love and royal obligations. Even without confirmation, these theories prove a point. The speculation itself reveals just how much this still matters to everyone. People aren't seeing these as dusty old relics, but as a roadmap for the future. That shift in perspective carries a massive amount of emotional weight. Her passing closed a chapter of history unlike anything we have ever seen. For those inside, her absence is still a fresh, painful wound. The idea that her words could still shape future decisions is surreal. It is not just about leaking info, it is about protecting a legacy. Observers say the themes of duty and stewardship dominate every talk. These concepts were her life. Now they are shaping how we see this collection. As the story unfolds, it is becoming clear that this is about more than access. It is about safeguarding the principles that kept the monarchy standing. Reactions from senior royals show they are feeling the pressure too. Some see this as a brutal reminder of the weight attached to their power. Others think it proves that stability needs constant protection during change. While their viewpoints differ, everyone seems to agree on one thing. These letters have put the spotlight right back on her incredible influence. You and I just witnessed how her values continue to rule from beyond. Stick with me because outside those palace walls, a firestorm of gossip was about to break out. Every single report just fueled the flames, and every bit of silence felt even louder. People were desperate, wondering what could possibly force such extreme cloak and dagger security measures. Why were top tier advisors and senior staff risking their reputations to lock these documents away? Everyone was dying to know if those letters held secrets capable of shaking the monarchy's foundation. Even after the author passed, no clear answers ever surfaced, keeping the mystery alive. Now, pay attention because this is where the real story actually begins to unfold. This whole mess forced the royals to finally confront their own history and responsibilities. What started as a simple stack of papers turned into a massive debate about duty. It became a high stakes conversation about purpose, continuity, and holding onto the past's legacy. In the aftermath, the monarchy itself seemed to shift, stepping into a brand new chapter. The Windsor Vault eventually returned to silence, keeping the letters tucked away from prying eyes. The headlines faded, but the chaos of those days left a permanent scar on the family. It was a brutal reveal of who truly stands guard when the institution hits a crisis. When the dust finally settled, this wasn't about filing systems or administrative red tape at all. No, it was something much bigger, a deep seated test of character for everyone involved. It became a story about stewardship and the crushing unseen burdens of protecting a legacy. We're talking about an institution that has survived centuries of triumphs, crises, and total transformation. The letters might be hidden behind locked doors, but their questions still echo through the halls. For many watching, Princess Anne actually came out of this looking stronger than ever before. She emerged from the chaos with her reputation ironclad, proving her worth to the crown. Throughout her entire life, she always occupied a unique, somewhat quiet position of power. Rarely the loudest, never seeking the spotlight, she was always defined by sheer unwavering discipline. Palace insiders say the Windsor Vault drama just reinforced exactly why she is so trusted. Love her or hate her, Anne did what she believed was necessary to keep things stable. She acted to preserve continuity at a moment when uncertainty was growing by the day. She reminded everyone why she has long been regarded as one of the monarchy's protectors. Meanwhile, the scandal brought a fresh, intense spotlight onto Queen Elizabeth II's shadow. Even in her absence, her influence seemed to steer every single debate and royal discussion. Everything kept circling back to one central haunting question for the current royal line. What did the late Queen actually intend for future generations to learn and protect? The fact that her old letters sparked such madness years later shows how huge her legacy is. Her reign was built on patience and service values that defined her entire life's work. You and I both know these values were suddenly back at the center for King Charles. This episode was a brutal reminder of the pressure that comes with leading during transition. He inherited a monarchy trying to navigate a new era while carrying the weight of history. People close to the throne know Charles understands that stability often demands very difficult decisions. It requires careful judgment and putting the needs of the institution above his own preferences. The tension around those letters showed exactly how complicated that balancing act truly becomes. Maybe the biggest lesson here was the constant friction between duty and personal interest. Throughout the whole controversy, different priorities and competing interpretations were clashing in the dark. All of them were fighting for influence, but deep down, one truth remained untouched. Institutions survive not because everyone agrees, but because certain principles stand above any one person. Preserving history and safeguarding the legacy became more important than any faction's personal ambitions. The royal archives themselves emerged from this fight with a newfound sense of quiet purpose. Stick with me because the Windsor Vault holds secrets with new massive significance. For decades, those quiet walls preserved the untold story of the monarchy. Now they remind us that history is never just about the past. It actually shapes our future, proving that old decisions influence everything decades later. You might be thinking, these are just old files, but the truth is, words kept in confidence carry weight long after the authors pass. That reality gives this vault a level of importance that goes far beyond simple bricks and security locks. So the monarchy moves ahead, keeping those letters protected while the public noise finally fades. Now pay close attention to these new challenges always appear. Yet this story left us something truly valuable. Legacies do not just survive by accident. They endure because someone chooses to shield them when it really matters. You and I know that in the House of Windsor, power is not about who shouts the loudest, but who is trusted to keep history safe in the shadows. Thanks for watching, everyone, and stick with me. We will see you in the next one.